Well, welcome everybody to tonight's webinar, which is, in some ways a meeting that none of us really want to have, in the sense that a lot of our teams and athletes should be finishing really their second, almost third weeks of practice right now. But as you can tell, it's a different type of school year. But I know I speak for everybody, our coaches and athletic department, when I say that we're really excited about getting going on Monday. And I feel like these last 2 weeks we've been sort of chomping at the bit to get things ready and make sure that, we're in the best position possible to ensure that we have a good year, regardless of all the things going around us. And so, to start this, I think the biggest thing that I want to remind everybody of is, unlike other years, which, in a lot of ways you are worried about your team and what's going on with your team, how are things going. I want to remind you guys that, unlike any other year, this year you are wholly responsible for all the teams on campus. You're responsible for every team, every kid, everybody who wants to be involved in Rivers athletics. You are involved in that team. So I think it's really important that we keep in mind that we are taking care of everybody. Not only that for everybody, but you are taking care of not only our fall athletes, you're taking care of our winter athletes, you're taking care of our spring athletes. We want to make sure that we're doing all the things that we need to do to ensure that we have a good year in athletics, and we can do the things that I know all of you guys and girls want to do this year. So I'm excited to get going. There are things to think about as far as respect. You need to understand and respect the rules that are in place. Even if they, some of them are inconvenient and outside of the norm. We need to respect those rules so we stay on the fields. You need to make sure that we're working hard out there. We want to work hard, we want to get the most out of it, but also work smart. Some people haven't been as active, for obvious reasons, as they normally might have been in past springs and summers. And so if you feel, something, if you get lightheaded, or you have something come up, or you don't feel healthy, you need to make sure that you're honest with yourself, honest with your coach. If there's something that comes up and we need to get you to Myron or Noah or any of our trainers, or even to the health office, you need to be really honest with yourself so that we can make sure that we're getting the most out of it and we're also staying safe. I can't stress this enough. Have fun. Take care of each other. Look out for each other. The first couple weeks are going to look different than they have in the past, with the number of kids on fields, the kids that are on fields together. And I want you guys to make sure that you're looking out for each other. You're having fun. Find the opportunities to have fun out there. It really is, in this state of things, it's a privilege to be out on fields. So make sure that you're taking care of each other and you're having a great time. And as always, people who know me, my simple, long-lasting rule is just be a good human. Know what's in front of you, know who's around you, take care of each other, look out for each other. And we'll have a great year. So to get in some of the logistics, these are the things that we'll be outlining for you. It's a transition to the athletic day. Unlike other days where you can hang around in Lower McDowell and kind of kick around on campus before practice starts, there are some things that we have in place, that we need to have in place, to ensure that everybody's doing what's necessary, that they're being smart, they're being healthy, they're staying, getting right distance, keeping masks on. But we're getting to fields in the best way. And we kind of have a window now that we have to control, which is from 3 to 3:45, where we won't be on fields, but we're getting ready to get on fields after the middle school gets out. So these are the areas that are going to look a little bit different than they have in the past. If you have questions about these at all as we go through it, you can type those into the question and answer that we'll get to at the end of it. We're not going to hit questions right now, but if things come up and you have thoughts and you're wondering about things, put them in the question and answer. If you don't want to do that, find me at school, send me an email, whatever that is. But hopefully we hit on all the necessary things. So the first part, with personal equipment, generally it is a interesting scene in Lower McDowell where bags are strewn everywhere. You put things in lockers. Our locker rooms, as far as you guys know, the general locker rooms are not available this year. Team locker rooms are not available this year. So what we've set up is, in the indoor turf area, there are pegs along the wall where you can store all of your personal equipment to use for the day. And so you can come in, at the start of school, you take your bag. Each of those areas will be marked off with the sport athletic choice that you have on there. You will hang your bag. We are hoping that juniors and seniors, if you drive to school, you'll keep your personal equipment in your car. In that personal equipment, you'll need a mask. We have in the athletic store right now, we ordered a bunch of the Under Armour masks, which just create a little space away from your face. They're waterproof, a little bit easier to play in those. So those will be in the athletic store if you want those. And just let us know. We can get those to you, but you need a mask every day. You need your own filled and labeled water bottle. We won't be having water stations out at fields. That's just from a cross-contamination standpoint. So if you need those filled, we'll have an opportunity throughout the day that you could go and grab it and go to a filling station and fill it before practice, things like that. But I would suggest, back in my good old youth soccer days, we had those big igloo coolers that could get you through a lifetime of an afternoon. So if you're somebody who needs water and wants water and you need a lot of it, make sure that it's filled up, ready to go. You'll need all your sports specific equipment. You guys know what that is, whether you're playing in field hockey, soccer, football, whatever that is, you'll need to have that in that bag hanging in the MAC. To use, everybody, which I know will be a big source of excitement, get your own lovely cone, and those cones, hey, if you want to decorate it, go nuts. You can bring those out to your field. That's where you're going to put your personal equipment, and you're going to leave your personal equipment there. So if there's a time during practice where you need to go get a drink, you'll go to that cone, which will be spaced out around fields, so that you can go take your mask off, get a drink, and it's in a good distance and safe area. Anything else like rollers and stuff like that you used to get from the training room will not be available. So if you need that before you stretch out, make sure that you pack that as well. I essentially think of it as your backpack, your personal equipment is your mobile locker. If you did forget any items, like normally people go to the cage and purchase something, a little bit different this year. If you need something, whether it's a t-shirt, shorts, whatever that is, a mask, anything that you need for that afternoon activity, I ask that you email Freddie Myers, who's working in our athletic department. He'll be handling any of those situations that come up. What we'll do is we'll put that in a bag and we'll put it up at your sports zone, which we'll get to a second, so you can get those before practice, and therefore you don't need to spend time searching for somebody or finding that equipment. If you forget something, obviously we can figure something out, but we're trying to get ahead of things and just keep people out from hanging out in front of MAC, which again is a bummer because that's one of the best places after school every day. I love it. But this year we just need to be aware of those spaces that are a little bit tighter, to keep people out of those spaces throughout the day. As far as locker rooms and changing, I don't know. I hope you guys like dress down days. You ask for them all the time. When I was a grade dean, I got a million questions about dress down days. We have a forever dress down day right now. And the idea is that you have essentially your practice gear either underneath, sweatpants, sweatshirt, whatever that is, or you're wearing it, so that we don't have a lot of people who need to go in and out and change. If for whatever reason, you don't have to state the reason, if you need to use a locker room to change before or after practice. I know some people that are going to use the bus or have longer drives. They want to change after practice. The visiting locker rooms will be available. In those visiting locker rooms, there are 2 rooms in each. So in the visiting locker room is a 10-person maximum. Again, we ask that you guys keep social distance. That's not an area that we're going to oversee. We just ask the respect and the responsibility piece to maintain that. But there are 5 people in each room, 10 people maximum. Again, if anything comes up and you need to use that space, that's totally fine. We would love if everybody just wore their gear during the day, and sometimes that's not a possibility. We understand that. And so we'll be overseeing that before practice and then after practices if you need to. Just be responsible with that space.
Okay, for the training room this year, it's going to be a lot different than years past. Usually it's a place where kids go during the day to hang out during their free blocks or free time before practice and after practice. This year, it's not a place where kids can congregate. As far as what you can use the trainers for, they will not be doing treatments at all this year. All athletes will enter the weight room. If you do need to go see the trainers for any reason, all athletes will enter through the weight room and then wait to be called. You'll see there's blue tape on the floor, and you'll be called in by Myron or Noah, and that's when it's safe to enter into the training room. Likewise, after being taped, athletes will leave through the training room door and exit McDowell through the doors under the athletic department office, just so we sort of have a one-way traffic going on there. As far as needs before practice, trainers will be utilized for taping and first aid needs only. All right, so no heat this year, no stim or other extensive treatment will be provided. At the end of practices, we will have to-go ice bags for you to take, but that is basically all that the trainers will be used for this year. As far as concussion testing, everyone goes through that testing every year. We have a completely new concussion testing protocol. We're no longer doing the impact, and this year it's called SWAY, and it will track our baseline. Sway is super easy. I did it the other day. I was sort of the guinea pig, and you can do it on your phone, and it's super interactive, engaging. It takes about 25 minutes, and it feels like you're playing a game on your phone. So it's much better. I think the trainers are really excited about it, and we're happy to make that switch. As far as when we will be doing these testings, in the next few weeks, the trainers will notify each of the coaches when your team will be completing the test, and all you'll need to do is be required to bring your phone to practice, and we'll go from there. As far as if an injury or an emergency happens during practice, coaches will contact the trainers and treatment will be administered on the field, and next steps will be determined from the field. So we won't be taking the kids into the training room if we can avoid that. As far as sports zones, so Mr. Zalaski touched on this, classes are getting over at 3 o'clock and our practices don't start until 3:45. So there's that 45-minute window where typically on a normal year, kids congregate outside of the cage and you're hanging out, and we're trying to avoid having as many kids in McDowell as possible. So we have designated areas where you will go between that 3 and 3:45 time frame, and you will meet your coach. So the cross country team will be meeting at Light Field, which is the baseball field, and you will use the bridge going out to the junior parking lot to get there. Boys soccer will meet at Nonsuch Field, and you will be using the bridge that heads out towards Nonsuch. Field hockey and girls soccer will be meeting on the terrace outside of Hutton. Field hockey will meet closer to Hutton Hall, and girls soccer will be tucked a little bit further in on the terrace. Football will be on will meet at the pavilion between Baker and Davis Field, and volleyball will meet on Waterman Field as well, closer to their net, and you will also use the bridge heading out towards the junior parking lot. From 3 to 3:45, the coaches will meet with you, give you any announcements, and then it's the time for you to put your personal equipment on, just like Mr. Zalaski said.
Awesome. So for practice, the big things that we want to talk about is, in general, it's going to be different. Your coaches for your sport-specific piece will be giving you what those sport-specific guidelines are. But for you guys, as a broad stroke, for everybody, it's masks need to be on at fields at all times unless you are getting water. If there's an opportunity where you have a lot of distance between you and other people, that's a time for a quick mask break, things like that. But the going in position is that masks are on at all times. And that's, another reason, if you are looking for a mask that is better equipped for practices and athletic training. I know it's an inconvenience, but it is what's in the guidelines, it's what's requested, and it's what's needed for everybody. So those masks need to be on fields. We've talked to coaches. Again, we don't want to be negative in any ways, but if people can't follow those, that's going to be an indicator that certain people can't be on fields, or we can't be practicing at that time if we can't follow those rules. We talked about distancing, especially in the first couple of weeks. Most things will be skills and drills based, some fitness, some strength and conditioning, things like that. Get you active, get you on fields, get you to understand protocols, know what's going on. Distancing is a big part of that. Obviously, you're going to walk past people just like you would in the academic day, and it's not maintaining 6 feet at all times. It's trying to keep away from stagnant 6 feet spacing. So again, if we're going to put cones out at fields, you're going to have distance for your personal equipment, for your hydration, so that you have an opportunity to take your mask off. There will be sanitization tables out at fields for every field. So every 15 or so minutes, you'll be required to sanitize. It's a hard word. And so you just need to make sure that we take care of that. Tables will be out there. Our return to play protocols, which I'll go through in a little bit, is kind of a build-up, just like in the academic days, a build-up to the athletic day. It's something that all ISL teams have talked about, is getting us to a spot where all schools, or the schools that can, feel comfortable moving towards a direction of interscholastic competition, which is definitely still a possibility, but we're having teams and schools return to play in a certain way. So we build up to that and understand what the best practices are in getting back to sport in this way. Again, like I said to you, your coaches will have sport-specific guidelines that, modifications and things like that, that will be a little bit different than how you normally operate. But I don't need to go into logistics of all of those specific things. Your coaches will walk you through that as you guys get out to practices. At the end of practice, any team or personal equipment, really the team equipment, which will be stored out at pavilions and things like that, your coaches will talk to you about that we need to disinfect all of that. So we will be spraying things down, making sure that we're spraying all soccer balls down. All shared equipment will be sprayed down and disinfected, and then will be stored at the pavilion. All the pavilions where the equipment is, the coaches will have access to, and will be the ones who are taking things out and putting them back in, just to make sure that we stay organized and we are taking care of all of those things. So no equipment will be in McDowell, all of it will be out at fields. Just to give you an idea of the schedule during the first week here. In the first week, we're building up, we're getting used to what it looks like to be on fields. So our winter cohort athletes, the ones that were on campus the first week, will be on fields on Monday and Thursday of that first week. So the 21st and 24th, we may have captains on those fields. We will have captains on those fields throughout the week, just to help with practices and to help to make sure that we are following all things. And then the none such cohort will be on Tuesday and Friday of that week. And those practices will go from 3:45 to 5:15. And then hopefully at that point, we're good. We've covered everything. Everyone feels comfortable. They know what's going on. So that on the week of September 28th, we have that Monday off. And so on that Tuesday, we will be on fields, everybody on fields, and we'll be operational. But again, a lot of that will be determined on how we do in that first week, how our coaches feel like we are, where we're at as a school, to make sure that we can make that jump to everybody on those fields. During the year, generally we will have practice Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and those Wednesdays are flex days where we can flex in practice. We can flex in alternative programming as far as what teams do, how they're interacting, things like that. Some specific activities may vary, things like strength and conditioning, which is something that I haven't talked about, but our strength and conditioning is in the indoor turf. That schedule will definitely be different than what the athletic team practices schedule looks like, but we'll send those out to all athletes who are participating in that. This is another plug. We are roughly missing 80 people who have not filled out the survey. And so we do not know what their athletic choice is, which makes it very difficult for us to figure out numbers. So if you are one of those people and you're tuning in tonight, make sure that that survey is filled out so we can make sure we put together the best schedule and we know exactly who's on what fields and when. Hopefully by the end of the second week, we'll have all teams designated. Some teams may be earlier than others. But we'll figure out, again, where varsity, sub-varsity, what that makeup looks like by the end of the second week. It could be earlier than that, but we'll have that all figured out by the end of the second week. The last piece of this is, with inclement weather, we'll be looking at radars. I am sometimes in the summer known as a golfer, and I am a professional Doppler studier. So I will be looking at those weathers. We'll be looking at it as a group, and we'll be basically making a call every day by noon if we have inclement weather, whether we will be practicing or not. If we're raining, if it looks like a bad forecast, if it looks like heavy rain, we won't be practicing during that time because we don't have the space as far as locker rooms and things like that after practice. If things turn to lightning, it's a little bit different than what we normally have. Obviously, if something pops up during practice and we have a lightning issue or something happens, we will have those spaces set up. Our coaches know where you will go in case of emergency, but we will send out messages to parents, kids, all those things that update you on what the day looks like. And unfortunately, in some of those days, if it looks like bad weather, we will notify everyone by noon of that day. So return to play, which I mentioned earlier, is just a build up to playing. And so what it looks like is in the first week or two, it's on fields, groups that are together are less than 10 kids in a group, doing mostly skills and drills, spaced out, rotating. By the second week, maybe pushing into the third week, depending on how things go, we can get groups that are a little bit bigger, closer contact skills and drills. And then by week 3, running into possibly week 4, we can get into small-sided scrimmages. Possible inter-squad scrimmages are allowed. And then by that 4th week, 4 to 5 weeks, we have that possibility to get into interscholastic competition. That is still on the radar. There are still teams we want to play if we can play and we feel like it's safe, and our community is in a good spot, and the team that we're playing against is in a good place. And we'll talk about, if we get closer, we'll send out probably a different list of things that and the way that's going to go. And again, we're building to that. That's a plan. You guys are a big part of that plan. So if it's something that you want to do, you have a lot to say about it, in the sense that you can take care of yourself, be responsible, all the things that we talked about, and work towards that competition. Again, I put TBD in there. We can go back to any of these groups depending on where we're at as a school. We may jump back to certain levels depending on how things go. Okay, so that's the overall schedule. If you have questions on things, we will send out. Again, I think you're familiar with those cohorts. The groups that are a little bit different, we'll send out those. If you have questions on anything, just make sure you reach out to me to ask those questions if you're confused on when you should be there, timing, things like that. So we did put together a lovely little video by the help of Jana and Freddie. We got some kids together. Some of our kids have put together a little video just to give you a visual of how things look. If you think any of them have an acting future, I would, give them a little nod, give them a little push. But here is the quick clip so you can get a visual of how certain things look at certain times.
Whoa, 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 what are you doing?
Oh, my bad, my bad.
Wait at the door until we call you in. All right, now you can come in.
All right, guys, time for practice. Whoa, 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 no kids in the building. Wait for me to bring it out. Only coaches. Bring this out to your field. Bring this out to your field. Thank you.
Okay, ladies, practice is done. See you tomorrow.
Oh wait, we have to clean the wall.
Oh.
Make sure you spray it down.
Thanks, Tuna and Molly.
Of course. Have a good day, Esther.
You too.
So now we'll get into our Q&A area. So if you have any questions, anything like that, I saw one question popped up in the chat feature, and it's about signups. If you signed up for a particular sport, that sign up is locked in. You're in that athletic choice, and we'll be sending out those groups. Again, we were missing roughly, I would say 80 or so surveys. So if you already did it, great. We will send that out and get back to you with what your athletic choice is, where you need to go. Your coach will do that. So if you sign that up, you're all set with your athletic choice. If you have a question about what your athletic choice is, you can email myself or Jana, and we will get back to you with what that choice is, what you signed up for if you forgot.
There's a question about how do you confirm that people have completed the survey?
I guess the easiest way right now is if you're not sure, you could fill it out again if you're unsure if you completed it. And that way we can always look for duplicates when we put together the teams, or you can email us separately and I can check the survey results to see if you're signed up.
Okay, here's another question. You may have kind of answered it, but are there tryouts? Is it preseason?
Technically, we want everybody on the fields. We want people out there being active, understanding what, we want to do. I don't know if you want to call them tryouts or preseason. I just call it, program practices where everybody's involved. We're getting everybody, all our coaches, our varsity coaches, our sub-varsity coaches are together. So that everybody will be on the fields. And then at the end of that second week, we will try and have teams set at that point so that we can organize the fields and kids are in the places that are the best fit for them.
And what time will practices run until?
Practices in those first couple weeks will run until 5:15, and then we'll adjust as we make teams. Some varsity practices may run to 5:30 or so. Most sub-varsity will run to about 5:15 each day.
And just to be clear, there is zero possibility of a spring football season, correct?
Correct.
How much are the Under Armour masks?
They are $25, which is a discount off of the standard $30 price.
Okay. What can you explain why does the first week of practice have to be in cohorts?
It's a similar idea to our academic day, where we are trying to ensure that everybody understands what's needed when they're on fields, how they need to interact on fields, what our protocols are on fields, and get everybody comfortable with kind of this new norm so that when we are out on fields, we're not trying to tackle things as they come, but we can really kind of get ahead of it so that when we are fully on campus that next week, everybody on fields, that there's no question on how things are supposed to run.
Okay, and the timeline said basically no games till the third week in October. Is that correct?
I mean, that's variable, like that timing in there, that can change depending on, again, how the weeks go, how we're progressing, how our coaches feel. That's a general time frame that ISL sort of had put together. But I think depending on how things go, as we know in everything COVID, those things can change as we come.
Okay, we have a few more. Can kids change in the bathrooms?
We would prefer in those visiting locker rooms. If it's individual bathrooms, that's fine. There's some individual bathrooms around campus. Yeah, that works as well.
So is there any requirement for after-school activities this year?
There is no requirement for after-school activities whatsoever. We've dropped the athletic or afternoon requirement. So if, again, it's something that you don't feel comfortable with, or even that you are not interested in, that's totally fine. It won't be held against you in a later season or anything like that.
Okay, if a student has severe asthma, can they wear a gaiter instead of a mask?
It's a great question. I'll talk with our health and safety committee and get back to that family if they want to email me on the side personally. I'll make sure that we get back to them tomorrow.
Okay. Do you know the schedule for strength and conditioning or not yet?
Well, we didn't break up the groups because I knew that we were missing people. So once we get everybody signed up in that survey, then we can break it up and make the schedule. The schedule timing wise though will be very similar, and it will be more than likely 3 days a week will be the strength and conditioning program.
Okay. Are there specific practice uniforms?
For certain teams, yes. Certain teams, no. In those first couple days, you will not have those specific practice uniforms unless the coach outlines what you need. Most teams use pennies, which we'll wash every day. Other teams use reversibles and all that stuff. In the early practices, again, there's no set dress code. I guess I would avoid jeans and restrictive wear, but I would go with just any type of sports gear for that first week.
Will there be cuts on all teams or just varsity to JV?
It depends on the team. Some
Okay.
of our teams don't have designations. Some of them have smaller numbers. So it's really team to team.
Okay. Couple more. Is it possible to resend the link to the form? I've had a few
I will.
questions about that.
Yep. I'll send it out to the email that I sent earlier this year. I may send it out just because it's easier. I'll send it out to all students. And so if there are parents listening and things like that and students that are interested, make sure that students, you guys are checking your email. I'll send that out tonight.
If a student gets cut, can they move to another team,
Another sport,
another sport? Yeah.
we can talk about that on a case-to-case basis. It's generally not something we've done a ton of, but we can talk about that as we get into the season.
Here's a good logistical one. Do bags have to be brought home every night or can they be left at school?
We would prefer we will be cleaning that area at times, so we would prefer that people take their bags and bring them home.
Okay. And what will we do with sports if we end up going online or on Zoom or back to the cohorts?
We've built out some online workouts. We've had Zoom workouts that have taken place earlier. In this, we will build for that. If that time's come, we have some of it in place right now. Generally, if we are not going to be on campus for the academic day, we would not be on campus for the athletic day.
Okay. Are you concerned about the number of students on each team? Seems like a lot, even with the cohorts.
Numbers are pretty good. Spacing on fields we've looked at from a sign-up standpoint is good when we break it down in the first, especially in that first week there with teams. We don't have more than on a specific field, really 25 kids or so at the max. And so most are broken up pretty well. But I'm not so concerned with it because in general, there's a lot of space in those fields. They're going to be in smaller groups. Our coaches are preparing to keep them not separated in those spaces.
Okay. There's a few more, but they're pretty redundant. So I think that's about it.
Yeah, I will resend out the survey. And obviously, if there are questions that I didn't touch on, don't hesitate to email me. Going into this, as you guys know, I will try to respond as quickly as I can. I want to respond. I have a problem with my email where if emails build up, I lose it and I have to get rid of them. So if you wanted a question answered, email me and it will get answered. I appreciate the time. And again, I know you all, it's a different year and there's obviously things that we wish were different, but we are where we are and we can control what we control and you guys are in control of that. And I trust you guys to the fullest. I trust our coaches. I think it's going to be a great year. I'm excited to get going. I'm excited to start. I'm excited to see teams out on fields. Looking forward to it. I've been waiting for it, for a while now, as I'm sure you are too. So let's enjoy it. Let's have a good time. If things come up, I'm an open book. Let me know if you want to vent, come in and vent. But let's get into the season. Let's have fun. Do it together and take care of each other. Thank you, everyone.